Morning everyone, this is Van with another episode of the CrossDoc. In this video, I'll be going through my very first race of the 2017-2018 season, which happens to be the CrossVegas USA Cycling Men's Race, Cat 1 through 4. I got gridded up, I think like in the 5th row, and here we are at the start. Now, a couple features about Vegas make this a very tough course. One is the grass. The start is supposed to be like a blast off right off the line, and I tried doing that and I was like working super hard, and I looked down, I was going like 9 miles an hour. And that's because Vegas has this thick, deep grass that is very power sucking. We also had a headwind down the starting stretch, so I didn't want to waste too much energy and just try to like conserve and pick off riders one by one. As you can see, I try to move here to the left of the course because there's actually a nice, well-worn groove where the grass is drier and more packed down. And in my pre-ride, I noticed I was saving a ton of watts just going on that faster one. The first technical feature was this kind of like S-turn chicane section. I wasn't trying to go crazy or pass anyone. I knew that we had 4 laps, so I was just trying to take like smooth lines, and then just try to get, and I keep pace basically. I was just trying to keep pace. We approach another technical feature, which are a set of wooden steps, and again, I noticed in my pre-ride that I could ride them. So trying to ride the steps here. It wasn't any faster than dismounting and running up the hill, but even though it wasn't faster, I felt for me it was more efficient because then I didn't have to remount. I was already on my bike and I could just like keep my momentum going. Right into another of the tough features on this course, like super steep hills with grass. And again, in my mind, I was like, oh, I got 4 laps of this. I gotta just make sure I'm conserving. I did this race 2 years ago and definitely died at the end, so I didn't want to do that this year. Alright, another good reason to pre-ride the course is to check out tire pressure. We have a kind of a fast downhill here, which is into some sweeping turns. And during my pre-ride, I noticed I was actually bottoming out and rolling my tire a little bit, folding it over basically. I had to put in maybe like 2 more PSI up in the front, and then that section was a lot more stable. So hey, here's to pre-riding if you can do it, and trying to find that sweet tire pressure for the course. Okay, here's the steepest climb. Again, it's a stand-up climb. You're like in the easiest gear but still working hard, and yeah, that one was tough after 4 laps. We're getting to the back side of the course. This section is kind of like undulating, still with the really power-sucking grass. And we are going into the direction of the other tough feature of this course. We talked about the power-sucking grass. Oh, it happens to be 91 degrees in the afternoon, super hot. And if you can look at how the barrier tape is moving, it is super windy. So I tag onto the back of this rider as we go by the pits. Right now it's a tailwind, but I know as soon as we make this 180 degree turn, it's like riding straight into a wall. It is a headwind and it is pretty brisk. So in this section, it definitely helped to work together with some other riders, have some drafting. Sometimes people talk about how cross isn't the same as road, but you know what? There is some drafting and it does help. Alright, a couple more chicanes and we're going to approach the next feature of this course, which is an uphill sand pit. So if you watch the footage from the men's pro race, you can see the top guys like Lawrence Swig, Jeremy Powers, riding through the uphill sand pit. Yeah, we're not like any of them. So I was not able to ride the whole way in any of my pre-ride. And when I tried pushing the bike through the sand, I was noticing that it was a lot more friction. Like I'm having to overcome the run, and I'm having to overcome the rolling resistance of my tire pushing through the sand. So it was a shoulder and carry for me. One thing I noticed was that as I got more tired, I was less smooth with my dismount into the sand pit. I was almost coming to like a little mini stop and then picking up the bike. What you really want to be doing is like not stopping, well, obviously, keeping your stride and picking up your bike as you're running so that you're still going forward in one smooth motion. That was easier to do at the beginning when I was fresh, less easy to do towards the end. All right, this section is still a headwind, but for some reason, I don't know if it was the grass being a little bit shorter or I had a little break from my muscles running the sand pit, but this section, every lap, I was feeling really strong. It was almost like I had a second wind here. We go into this like tight 180 corner, down then up. One other thing that I was thinking about during this race, which honestly you don't really want to be thinking about, cyclocross racing is like 40 minutes all out. You want to just be all out. You don't want to get to the end of the race and be like, well, I have a little bit left in the tank. You want to wring every single watt that you have in your system. However, today, since I had driven pretty far to get to the race, I wanted to make my drive worth it, so I had signed up for 2 races. Could have been smart, could have also been dumb. So this is the first race, the USAC race, and I was planning to do the Wheelers and Dealers race later in the evening. So a little bit of my, I guess you could say, mental strategy was to say, okay, I have to save a little bit for the Wheelers and Dealers race. Again, not something you really want to be doing. I should have just tried to go all out and not really think about the race after this, but that mental like thought started creeping in, and I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't like go too hard. But no, I was still pretty worked. I was trying to go as hard as I could, but thinking about that race afterwards. Here we have our approach to the Cask flyover. The course was pretty fun. It had 2 flyovers, had the uphill sand pit, had that barrier section that you just saw, and we're starting to get towards the end of the lap. Oh, back to the barrier section. A lot of riders in our race were hopping it. I would say maybe like 30% of the riders were attempting like some hopping, at least from what I saw, but not for me. I didn't want to eat it, and like it was one of those things where it was risk versus reward. It's one of those things that I can sometimes do and practice, but in a real race, I don't know, for some reason I get like nervous. I don't want to eat it, and I'm like, well, it's gonna be way worse if I crash. So I actually really haven't hopped any barriers in a race. So here we go again into a headwind section. I'm riding behind this guy, and we're approaching towards the end of the lap. If you're with someone at the end of the lap, it pays attention to know the run into the finish. So for this race, you have a concrete section, nice and smooth, into the stair section. It almost seemed like very doable to ride, like the rider on my left is doing. And I tried it in pre-ride, but I couldn't get it every single time. So again, it was a dismount and run up for me. And finally get this one long stretch of grass, into the start-finish section. It was 3 more laps of this. I got in right at 40 minutes, and 2 years ago when I did this race, I got 60th. This year, I got like 30th. So maybe a little bit better, but still totally worked. Thanks for watching. This is the CrossDoc, and I hope to see you out at the races.